Hello. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for your availability today for this impromptu meeting. I just wanted to go over a couple things about your student, and I thought maybe we would start first by talking about the achievement levels and what the Florida Standards Assessment scores look like during your student's sixth grade year. So, to get things started, you can see here that your students scored as an achievement level of 3 out of 5 on the FSA, and their scaled score was a 338. So I know that could sound kind of confusing, but essentially what this is saying is that out of these 5 subsections, we have craft and structure, integration of knowledge and ideas, key ideas and details, language and editing, and text-based writing. So all of these scores are compiled and they create a scaled score. And that scaled score determines where your student falls for the year as far as FSA achievement. These scores also help determine where your student is placed as far as what kind of classes they take. So that basically explains why your student has been scheduled in advanced classes for reading and language arts. So, to break down some of the data a little bit more, these are what the Florida Standards Assessment achievement levels are. So, when we look at what your students scored as a sixth grader, they scored a 338. So, that put him in that upper level bucket of level 3. He scored the highest he can get as a sixth grader to be in level 3. So, what that means for your student this year is he essentially needs to maintain his level 3, but he also needs to grow a point because the bare minimum score he can get as a seventh grader to maintain a level 3 is a 333. But because 333 is less than 338, that would show that he would be sliding backwards. And we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that he maintains his level 3, but also is showing growth. So he would need to grow by 1 point as a seventh grader to maintain his level 3. However, if your student wants to, and I'm sure that you want your student to do this, to jump his bucket up to a level 4, that would really show that he has mastered the skills. He's mastered the seventh grade and all of the standards that he needs to meet. Bumping him up to a level 4 would be he would need to earn a 346 as a skill score. And that's really only an additional 7 points that he would need to earn. So, ways that he might earn that. When we look back at his scores from last year, we see language and editing and text-based writing. He is super strong. Writing skills are really on par. However, his reading, he's looking like he's struggling a little bit. So I think that your student really needs a focus on reading skills and reading comprehension. And that's really where we can start to embed some of those the interventions that might help get these scores up and help him succeed in the seventh grade and into the eighth grade. Now, I called this meeting because as I look at his current test scores for our district STAR progress monitoring, it looks like he's actually in a reading regression. And mom and dad, this is where you come in. It is super important that your student is reading every day, at least 20 minutes a day. And honestly, any reading counts as reading. So if it's a comic book or even if it's a graphic novel, any reading counts as reading, as long as it's something that's interesting to him. So looking at his scaled scores, he's gone from an 895 that put him in a percentage rank of 59%. So he was doing better than more than half of students who take the STAR progress monitoring assessment. Now, as of February, he's slid down to the 27th percentile, which unfortunately puts him in a level 2A bucket for STAR. Now, I know that I'm talking buckets, I'm talking achievement levels. I know that it can be very confusing as a parent, but ultimately what I want you to understand is that this bucket system is very closely related to his FSA progress and how we are going to expect him to perform on the Florida Standards Assessment as a seventh grader. So, judging by where he started in the level 3 bucket, that was about where he was when he entered the seventh grade after taking the FSA sixth grade. Unfortunately, he jumped up, but then really took a slide backwards and is now in that 2A bucket, which is below proficiency. So, some things that we might be able to do to help him, I would say that we really need an increased exposure to a variety of different printed materials. In addition, it needs to be high interest and materials that are of value to him, or else he's not going to want to read it. And he needs to have some sort of choice, especially if he's in a reading regression. It might be important that he has different choices because he's not going to want to read otherwise. I also recommend that we talk to his IEP case manager. I know that he does have some goals set in place because of his speech and his math scores, but I think that maybe putting in place some reading goals now before we hit the end of the year would be something that would benefit him because it is an area of focus and it's something that we could do now versus waiting until next year when it's too late and he ends up in intensive classes versus advanced. So, Mom and Dad, I hope that this helps to answer any questions that you have about your son's progress. And please know that you can always reach out to me if there's anything else that you need from me. Thank you.